Hi everyone, I am Aunt Vivvy. Today we share a story, but I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like for our other sisters. Tonight is a heartfelt one. Grab your blankie and tea and sit while I share. I knew I had to share this with you. Listen to our sister, decide for yourself.
My son emptied my bank account, but what happened 3 weeks later left me speechless. My son did something I never thought possible. When I found out, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. But what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love, betrayal, and what it truly means to be a mother. Oh my dear. Come sit down. Make yourself comfortable. It's Aunt Vivvy here, and oh, do I have a story for you today. Pour yourself some tea, wrap yourself in that favorite blanket, and let's talk, just you and me. Today's story is one that reminds us how the deepest pain can sometimes carve out space for the most profound peace. It's about trust broken, hearts shattered, and a truth I never expected to learn at 63 years old. But before we begin, I want you to know something. Whatever you're carrying today, whatever weight sits on your shoulders, whatever disappointment clouds your heart, you're not alone. We all walk these roads, my dear. Every single one of us. And sometimes the stories that hurt the most are the ones that teach us the most. So, let me tell you about the day my whole world fell apart. You know, when you're young, you have all these dreams about how life will unfold. You imagine your children growing up strong and kind, your golden years filled with Sunday dinners and grandchildren's laughter. You work hard, sacrifice, and tell yourself it's all worth it because you're building something. A family, a legacy, a life. I was 21 when I had David. Just a baby myself, really, with stars in my eyes and hope in my heart. His father left before David's second birthday. Just walked out one Tuesday morning and never came back. No explanation, no forwarding address. Just gone. And you know what? I didn't crumble. I should have, probably. I had every right to fall apart. But when you're holding a toddler in your arms and he looks up at you with those big, trusting eyes, falling apart isn't an option. So I did what so many mothers before me have done. I straightened my spine, dried my tears, and got to work. Motherhood, my own mama used to say, is the art of becoming stronger than you ever thought possible. I worked 2 jobs for 15 years. During the day, I was a secretary at a law firm, answering phones, filing papers, making coffee that was always either too strong or too weak, according to Mr. Henderson. Then 3 evenings a week, I cleaned office buildings downtown. Let me tell you, there's something humbling about scrubbing toilets at midnight while the city sleeps. But there's also something dignifying about it. Every spray of cleaner, every sweep of the mop was for David. For his school clothes. For his field trips. For the little league fees and the music lessons he begged for when he was 9. I remember this one night. David must have been about 12. I came home at 2 a.m. bone-tired, my knees aching. And there he was, sitting at the kitchen table, still awake. He'd made me a peanut butter sandwich and left a note. Mom, you're my hero. I still have that note. Even now. Those years weren't easy, but they were good. We had each other. Every Sunday we'd walk to the park with day-old bread to feed the ducks. We'd invent stories about where they were flying to, Paris, Tokyo, some magical island where ducks lived like kings. David had such an imagination back then. He'd make me laugh until my sides hurt. Mom, he'd say, one day I'm going to be rich and I'm going to buy you the biggest house with a garden full of roses. And you'll never have to work again. You'll just sit and read books and drink tea all day. I'd ruffle his hair and tell him I didn't need a mansion. I just needed him to grow up to be a good man. Because at the end of the day, I'd say, what matters isn't what you have but who you are. High school came and went. David was bright, not straight A brilliant but clever in ways that mattered. He understood people. He could talk to anyone. Charm them, really. The teachers loved him. His friends flocked to him. Even Mrs. Patterson next door, who complained about everything from barking dogs to loud music, had a soft spot for David. That boy of yours is going places, Vivian, she'd say over the fence. Mark my words. And I believed her. Of course I did. What mother wouldn't? After high school, David got a job at a tech startup. Nothing fancy at first, just customer service, answering emails, that sort of thing. But he worked his way up. Within 3 years he was in sales. Within 5 he was a manager. He bought himself a nice car. Started wearing expensive suits. Moved into a sleek apartment downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and one of those coffee machines that looks like it belongs in a spaceship. I was so proud. He'd still call me every Sunday. How you doing, Mom? Always the same greeting. I'd tell him about my week, the garden I was planting, the book club at the library, Mrs. Patterson's latest complaint. He'd laugh in all the right places and tell me about his work, though I'll be honest, I never quite understood what he did. Something about optimizing customer engagement and scaling infrastructure. I'd just nod and smile. Mom, he'd say, you should retire. You've worked hard enough. I was 61 by then, still working part-time at the law firm. The cleaning job I'd left behind years earlier, thank goodness. But I liked working. It gave me purpose. Kept me sharp. I'm not ready to sit still yet, I'd tell him. Besides, I'm saving up. One day I'll take that trip to Scotland I've always dreamed about. Scotland. The land of my grandmother's birth. Rolling green hills and ancient castles. I'd been putting money aside for years. $5 here, $10 there. By my 63rd birthday I had nearly $47,000 saved. $47,000. Every penny earned with sore feet and tired eyes. Every cent a testament to early mornings and late nights. That money represented 30 years of sacrifice. Of saying no to vacations, new furniture, fancy dinners. That money was my independence. My safety net. My dream. And David knew about it. Mom, he said to me one Sunday about 6 months before everything happened, you should open an account with my bank. Better interest rates. I can help you set it up. Make sure you're getting the most out of your savings. It made sense. David understood these things better than I did. Numbers, investments, banking, it was all part of his world. So I said yes. We went to the bank together on a Saturday afternoon. He held the door for me, pulled out my chair, explained everything to the banker in that confident way of his. I signed the papers. He was added as a joint account holder. Just in case, Mom, he said. If anything ever happens to you this way, there's no legal hassle. I can take care of things. I squeezed his hand. You're such a good son. Trust, they say, is the easiest thing to give and the hardest thing to get back. I had no reason not to trust him. This was David. My boy. The child I'd raised. The young man who'd made me a peanut butter sandwich at midnight. The son who called me every Sunday without fail. Life continued its gentle rhythm. I went to work. Tended my garden. Had dinner with Mrs. Patterson once a week. David called every Sunday. Everything was as it should be. Until Monday morning, October 3rd. The day everything changed. You know how some moments are forever etched in your memory? Not just the big things, weddings, funerals, births, but the small, terrible moments that split your life into before and after? For me, it was 9:47 a.m. on a Monday morning. I remember because I just made my second cup of tea. Earl Grey with a splash of milk, the way I always take it. The morning sun was streaming through the kitchen window, catching the dust motes in the air. Outside, a cardinal sat on the fence post, its red feathers brilliant against the autumn leaves. It was a beautiful morning. I was expecting an email from the travel agency. I'd finally booked a tour of Scotland for the following spring. 52 weeks away. I'd been counting down like a child before Christmas. So I opened my laptop, sipped my tea and logged into my email. There was a notification from the bank. Account activity alert. I almost didn't click it. Usually those emails were just routine. A reminder about statement dates or some new feature they were offering. But something made me click. Maybe intuition. Maybe luck. Maybe God himself whispered, Vivian, look. The email was short. A transfer of $47,230 has been made from your savings account ending in 4782. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. The words didn't make sense. A transfer? I hadn't authorized any transfer. There must be some mistake. Banks make mistakes, don't they? Computer errors, glitches, that sort of thing. My hands were shaking as I logged into my account. And there it was. Or rather, there it wasn't. Balance. $127.43. $127.43. That's what remained of 30 years of savings. Of every sacrifice, every late night, every dream of walking through the highlands with the wind in my hair. Gone. The transfer had been made at 11:23 p.m. the night before. To an account I didn't recognize. Under the name, David M. Chin. External account. My son. I sat there for I don't know how long. The tea went cold in my hand. The cardinal flew away. The sun moved across the kitchen floor. And I just sat there staring at those numbers. $127.43. My chest felt tight. Not like a heart attack, I would know my friend Barbara had one last year, but like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribs and was slowly, methodically tightening them. I kept thinking, this is a mistake. There's an explanation. David wouldn't. He couldn't. But deep down, in that place where mothers know things they don't want to know, I understood. This was no mistake. I called the bank. Spoke to a young woman named Jennifer who sounded like she was reading from a script. Yes, Mrs. Chin, I can confirm that transfer was authorized by the joint account holder at 11:23 p.m. yesterday evening. But I didn't authorize it. No, ma'am. The other authorized user on the account processed the transfer. Can you reverse it? Can you stop it? I'm afraid not, ma'am. The transfer was legitimate. Both parties on the account have full authority to manage the funds. Legitimate. That word echoed in my head. Legitimate. But that's my money, I whispered. I earned it. There was a pause. Jennifer's voice softened just a fraction. She'd probably handled calls like this before. I understand, ma'am. I'm very sorry. But according to our records, this was a legal transaction. If you believe there's been fraud, you can file a police report, but since the account holder is family. She trailed off. We both knew what she wasn't saying. The police wouldn't do anything. This was a family matter. A civil dispute. Not theft. Not legally anyway. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in my kitchen and did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not the gentle tears of a sad movie or a sentimental song. Not the quiet weeping at a funeral. This was something else. Something raw and ugly and desperate. The kind of crying that comes from your belly, that shakes your whole body, that leaves you gasping for breath. I cried for the money, yes. But more than that, I cried for the trust. For the boy who'd made me peanut butter sandwiches. For the dreams of Scotland's green hills. For the naive woman I'd been just 24 hours ago who believed her son was still the person she'd raised. They say heartbreak is reserved for romance, I thought through my tears. But the worst heartbreak of all is when your child betrays you. When I could breathe again, when the tears finally stopped, I did what any mother would do. I called him. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. You've reached David. Can't take your call right now. Leave a message. Beep. David. My voice sounded strange. Hollow. Mom. I need you to call me. Right away. Please. I hung up and waited. 1 hour passed. Then I called again. Voicemail. David, I know what you did. I need you to explain. Please. Call me back. By evening I'd called 7 times. Each voicemail a little more desperate than the last. Each silence a little more deafening. At 9:30 p.m. my doorbell rang. My heart leaped. David. He'd come to explain. To fix this. To tell me it was all some terrible misunderstanding. I rushed to the door and opened it. A courier stood there with a clipboard and a small envelope. Vivian Chin? Yes. Sign here, please. I signed. He handed me the envelope and left. Inside was a single piece of paper. David's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. The same slightly messy scrawl from childhood thank you notes and school reports. Mom, I know you're angry and you have every right to be. I took the money and I'm not going to lie about it or make excuses. I needed it for an investment opportunity that couldn't wait. It's complicated and I can't explain right now. I'll pay you back. Every penny. I promise. But I need you to trust me and give me time. Please don't call me again. I need space to make this work. I'm sorry. David. I read that note 10 times. 20 times. Searching for something between the lines. Some warmth, some love, some indication that this was still my son. But all I found were cold, calculated words. Don't call me again. Not, I love you. Not, I'm sorry for hurting you. Don't call. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the walls. And for the first time in my 63 years, I felt truly, utterly alone. You know, they don't prepare you for this in life. No one teaches you how to function when your whole world inverts. When the person you'd trust with your life becomes the person who stole it from you. The first week was the hardest. I kept picking up the phone to call David. Old habits, I suppose. Something funny would happen. Mrs. Patterson's cat got stuck in her holly bush again, and I'd think, oh, David will love this story. Then I'd remember. And the phone would feel like lead in my hand. I couldn't eat much. Everything tasted like cardboard. I'd make soup, take 2 spoonfuls and dump the rest down the drain. At night, I'd lie awake, running through every conversation we'd had in the past year, searching for clues I'd missed. Warning signs. Red flags. Had he been planning this all along? When he suggested I move my savings to his bank, was that the beginning? Or had it been spontaneous? Some desperate moment where he'd looked at my account and seen a solution to whatever problem he was facing? I didn't know which was worse. Premeditation or desperation. Both meant I'd failed to see the truth about my own son. The hardest prison to escape, I thought one sleepless night, is the one we build from our own expectations. By the second week, reality began to settle in with cold, hard practicality. $127 doesn't last long. I had my monthly pension, enough to cover rent and utilities with a little left over. But that was it. No cushion. No emergency fund. No Scotland. I started going through my house with new eyes. What could I sell? The antique lamp my mother had given me. The set of china I'd been saving for special occasions, that never seemed to come. My grandmother's silver bracelet. Books I'd read and loved but could live without. The nice winter coat I'd bought 2 years ago. I created an account on one of those online marketplace sites. Taking photos with my phone, writing descriptions, posting prices. It felt strange, intimate somehow, offering up pieces of my life to strangers. The lamp sold first. A young woman named Anna came to pick it up. She was pregnant, glowing with that particular radiance expecting mothers have. "It's beautiful," she said, running her hand over the glass shade. "It's going in the nursery." I smiled. "Then it's going to the right home." She handed me $40 in cash. I watched her car pull away with the lamp carefully secured in her back seat, and I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The china went next. Then the bracelet. Then the coat. Mrs. Patterson noticed, of course. She notices everything. "You cleaning house, Vivian?" she asked one afternoon, catching me bringing boxes to my car. "Just decluttering," I said lightly. "You know how it is. Too much stuff." She gave me a look, that knowing look women of a certain age can give each other, the one that says, "I know you're lying and I'm not sure whether to pry or pretend I believe you." "You eating enough?" she asked instead. "You're looking thin." "I'm fine, Jean." "Really?" But I wasn't fine. And she knew it. That night she showed up at my door with a casserole. "Made too much," she said gruffly, shoving the dish into my hands. "Can't eat it all myself. You'd be doing me a favor." We both knew that was a lie. Jean Patterson had never made too much of anything in her life. She portioned her meals like a chemist measuring compounds. But that's the thing about real kindness, isn't it? It comes dressed in practicality. It doesn't announce itself or demand gratitude. It just shows up at your door with a casserole and a transparent lie that preserves your dignity. "Thank you, Jean," I said softly. She nodded and left before I could say anything else. I ate that casserole for 3 days. It was the best thing I'd tasted in weeks. By the 3rd week I'd sold most of what I could sell. I had about $800 saved up from the sales. Not much, but it helped. Enough to buy groceries without panic. Enough to breathe just a little. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a message from David. I stopped rehearsing what I'd say to him if he called. I stopped imagining reconciliations. Instead, I started to get angry. Real, deep, burning anger. Who did he think he was, taking my money? Dismissing me with a note? Telling me not to call? I was his mother, for God's sake. I'd raised him alone. Sacrificed everything. And this was how he repaid me? One night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen. I was going to write him a letter. A real letter, not some brief note. I was going to tell him exactly what he'd done, how he'd hurt me, what kind of person steals from their own mother. I wrote 3 pages. Scathing, bitter pages. Every grievance, every hurt, every disappointment poured out onto that paper. When I finished, I read it back. And then I tore it up. Not because he didn't deserve to hear those words. He did. But because I realized something as I read my own anger reflected back at me. Those words would change nothing. They wouldn't bring back the money. They wouldn't transform David into the son I'd thought he was. They wouldn't heal the wound. They would only make the wound permanent. Anger, I realized, is just grief in motion. And grief eventually must be let go or it becomes the only thing you carry. So instead of sending that letter, I did something I hadn't done since the morning I discovered the empty account. I prayed. Not the formal prayers of church services. Not recited words from memory. To God, to the universe, to whatever force holds this broken world together. I don't understand this, I said out loud to my empty kitchen. I don't understand why this happened or what I'm supposed to learn from it. But I'm asking for help. Because I can't carry this alone anymore. The house was silent. No booming voice answered. No sudden revelation descended. But something subtle shifted. Like a door opening just a crack. Like the first hint of dawn after the longest night. I went to bed that night and for the first time in 3 weeks I slept. Week 4 arrived with October rain and falling leaves. I'd developed a new routine. Wake at 7. Sit in the garden if weather permitted, living room if it didn't. Read. Think. Exist without constantly bracing for the next blow. I'd stopped checking my bank account obsessively. I knew what was there, enough to get by, nothing more. Acceptance, I was learning, doesn't mean happiness. It just means you stop fighting reality. On the 23rd day after the money disappeared, I was sitting in my living room with a mystery novel when I heard the mail slot clatter. I almost didn't get up. Mail had become unexciting. Bills, flyers, donation requests from charities. But something made me walk to the door. Among the usual stack was a thick envelope. Good quality paper. My name and address handwritten. The return address made my heart stop. David's apartment. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a check and a letter. I looked at the check first. $47,230. Every cent he'd taken. Every penny returned. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten. I sat down before I read it because somehow I knew my legs wouldn't hold me. Dear Mom. I don't know how to begin this letter except to say I'm sorry. Those words feel so inadequate, so small compared to what I've done, but they're all I have. I took your money. I justified it to myself in a dozen different ways. It was an emergency, it was temporary, I'd pay it back quickly. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I was desperate and I was selfish and I convinced myself that your money was the answer to my problems. The investment I mentioned in that note. It was real, but it wasn't noble. I'd gotten involved in something I shouldn't have. Made promises I couldn't keep. Owed money to people I shouldn't have owed money to. I was in over my head and I panicked. I took your savings because I knew you'd have it there, safe and accessible. Because I knew you trusted me. Because you'd made me a joint account holder and I could take it without asking. I betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. These past 3 weeks have been hell. Not because of the money. I found another way to fix my mess, borrowed from my 401k, sold my car. No, it's been hell because every day I've had to look at myself in the mirror and see someone I don't recognize. Someone who stole from his own mother. Someone who told you not to call him because he couldn't face what he'd done. Do you remember when I was 9 and I stole $20 from your purse to buy baseball cards? You didn't yell. You sat me down and asked me how I'd feel if someone took something from me that I'd worked hard for. I cried and apologized and promised never to steal again. I broke that promise in the worst way possible. I'm not writing this letter to ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it and I won't insult you by pretending I do. I'm writing because you deserve an explanation, an apology, and every cent I took from you. The check enclosed is the full amount. I want you to know it came from my retirement account. It took a penalty to withdraw it and it's going to set me back years financially. I'm telling you this not to earn sympathy, I don't want or deserve that, but because I want you to know this hurt me in a way that matters. In a way that will remind me, every month when I look at my diminished retirement statement, what I did. What I lost when I lost your trust. You used to tell me that being a good person isn't about never making mistakes. It's about how you handle yourself after you make them. I failed you catastrophically, but I'm trying to handle it the only way I know how, by making it right financially and by being honest with you about what happened and why. I know you probably don't want to talk to me. I understand that. But if you ever find it in your heart to let me try to rebuild even a fraction of what we had, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. You're still my rock, Mom. You always have been. I just wish I'd been a better man for you. I'm going to try to become one now. Even if you never see it. Even if we never speak again. I love you. I'm sorry. David. I read that letter 3 times with tears streaming down my face. And here's what I realized. There are 2 types of apologies in this world. The first kind tries to minimize. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry, but apologies that are really excuses wearing an apologies costume. Then there are the second kind. The ones that say, I did this. It was wrong. I own it completely. I'm trying to make it right. David's letter was the second kind. It didn't erase the hurt. It didn't magically restore 3 weeks of anguish. But it was honest. Raw. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than betrayal and anger. I felt hope. I took the check to the bank that afternoon. Deposited it back into my account. Watched the numbers climb back to where they'd been. $47,357.43. The same amount, give or take the interest I'd lost. But also not the same. Because money once stolen and returned carries a different weight than money that was never taken at all. That night I did something I hadn't planned to do. I called David. He answered on the first ring. His voice was tentative, almost fearful. Mom. I got your letter, I said. And the check. Silence. Then, I meant every word. I know you did. More silence. I could hear him breathing, waiting. David, I said slowly, what you did was unforgivable. I heard him exhale shakily. I know. But, I continued, forgiveness isn't about whether something can be forgiven. It's about choosing to forgive anyway. Not because the person deserves it, but because holding on to it will poison me more than it will punish you. Mom. I'm not saying everything is fine. It's not fine. I don't know if I trust you yet. That's going to take time. A long time. Maybe longer than either of us has. I understand. But I'm willing to try. If you're willing to prove that you meant what you wrote. There was a sound on the other end, a choked sob quickly stifled. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, Mom. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. We talked for an hour. Really talked in a way we hadn't in years. He told me everything. The bad investment, the people he'd gotten involved with, the spiral of poor decisions. I listened without interrupting, without judging. Listened. When we hung up, I felt exhausted but lighter somehow. Was everything fixed? Well, was our relationship back to normal? Not even close. But it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is enough. Now, my dear, here's where I want to take a moment and talk to you directly. Because this story isn't just about what happened to me. It's about what we all face at some point. Betrayal, disappointment, the shattering of expectations. Over the weeks and months that followed, I learned things I never expected to learn at 63 years old. Hard lessons but valuable ones. Let me share them with you. For a long time after David returned the money, I tortured myself with the question. Had I been a fool to trust him with access to my account? Mrs. Patterson certainly thought so. You gave him joint access, she said, scandalized. Vivian, that was asking for trouble. Maybe it was. But here's what I've come to understand. Trust is always a risk. Every relationship requires you to make yourself vulnerable. To open yourself to potential hurt. Yes, I could have protected my money better. Put it in an account only I could access. But in doing so, I would have been telling my son, I don't trust you. I expect you to betray me. And maybe that caution would have saved me from heartbreak. Or maybe it would have created a different kind of heartbreak. The slow, sad erosion of a relationship built on suspicion. Love requires risk. I finally understood. The alternative to potential betrayal isn't safety. It's isolation. That doesn't mean we should be naive. It means we should love with open eyes, knowing that people can disappoint us and choosing to love them anyway. David is the son who stole from me. That's true. But he's also the son who made me sandwiches at midnight. Who called every Sunday for years. Who returned every penny and took responsibility for what he'd done. We want people to be simple, good or bad, trustworthy or untrustworthy. But humans are complicated, contradictory creatures. We contain kindness and selfishness, wisdom and foolishness, strength and weakness, often all at the same time. David made a terrible choice. But one terrible choice doesn't negate a lifetime of good ones. And one good choice, returning the money, apologizing sincerely, doesn't erase the terrible one. We contain multitudes, all of us. And we must learn to hold that complexity without letting it drive us mad. I can't tell you how many people, when I eventually shared this story, said things like, "You're too soft on him. He should have to grovel longer. I'd never speak to him again." And maybe they're right. Maybe I am too soft. Maybe he should grovel longer. But here's what I know. Withholding forgiveness doesn't punish the other person nearly as much as it punishes you. Every day I spent consumed by anger and betrayal was a day David stole from me twice. Once when he took the money and again as I let his actions poison my present. Forgiveness didn't mean condoning what he did. It didn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It meant choosing not to let that hurt define the rest of my life. Forgiveness, someone wise once told me, is setting a prisoner free and discovering the prisoner was you. During those dark weeks when I was selling my possessions, I thought a lot about what really mattered. The money represented security, yes. Dreams, yes. Years of work, absolutely. But you know what I missed more than the money? The Sunday phone calls with my son. The easy laughter. The shared memories. The sense that I wasn't alone in the world. I'm 63 now. 64 soon. I don't know how many years I have left. None of us do. And I realized that spending whatever time I had left in bitterness and estrangement would be a worse theft than anything David had committed. Scotland can wait. Or maybe I'll never go. But I have my son back, however imperfectly. And that's worth more than all the green hills in the world. I think about Mrs. Patterson and her casserole. About Anna, the young pregnant woman who bought my lamp and told me it was beautiful. About Jennifer at the bank, whose voice softened when she heard the pain in mine. We don't survive heartbreak alone. We survive it in community, through small kindnesses, through people who show up with food and transparent lies, through strangers who treat us with unexpected gentleness. I'd been so focused on my son, on my small family unit, that I'd forgotten the wider web of humanity that holds us all. When David's thread broke, I discovered there were others there to catch me. We are not meant to be self-sufficient, I learned. We are meant to be interdependent. And there is profound strength in accepting help. Now, I won't lie to you and say everything was perfect after David and I started talking again. Life doesn't work that way, does it? Real healing isn't like the movies where one tearful conversation fixes everything and everyone rides off into the sunset. Rebuilding trust is slow, painstaking work. The first few months were awkward. David would call and I'd answer, but there would be these long silences. Not angry silences, just the silences of two people who aren't quite sure how to be with each other anymore. How's work? I'd ask. Good. Busy. You? Oh, fine. The garden's doing well. That's good. Silence. It was like learning a language we'd once spoken fluently but had somehow forgotten. But slowly, week by week, things got easier. David started coming over for dinner once a month. Just casual Sunday dinners, nothing fancy. The first time he came, he brought flowers. Daisies, my favorite. He stood at my door looking nervous, like a teenager picking up his date. Mom, I wasn't sure if... They're beautiful, I said, taking them. Come in. We ate pot roast and talked about safe things. The weather. His work projects. Mrs. Patterson's ongoing war with the neighborhood association over her garden gnome collection. We didn't talk about what had happened. Not directly. But it was there between us, acknowledged in the carefulness of our words. After dinner, as he was leaving, David paused at the door. Mom, I just want you to know. I'm in therapy now. Talking to someone about why I made the choices I did. I don't want to ever put you through something like that again. I touched his arm. I'm proud of you for doing that work. His eyes got shiny. I'm trying to be the son you deserve. David, I said gently, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. That's all any of us can do. You know what surprised me most? How much lighter I felt as time went on. For months I'd been carrying this weight. Anger, betrayal, disappointment. I'd thought that weight was David's to lift. That he'd somehow have to earn its removal through perfect behavior and endless apologies. But forgiveness doesn't work that way. When I chose to forgive him, I wasn't just giving him a gift. I was giving myself one. I started to laugh again. Really laugh, the kind that makes your sides hurt. Mrs. Patterson told me a story about accidentally dyeing her cat purple with some spilled fabric dye, and I laughed until tears ran down my face. I went back to my book club. Planted new roses. Started planning a smaller trip. Not Scotland, not yet, but maybe a weekend in the mountains. Something achievable. Something that reminded me I still had dreams. And here's something I didn't expect. My relationship with David became in some ways better than it had been before. I know that sounds strange. How could a relationship improve after such a catastrophic breach of trust? But it did. Because now we were being real with each other. Before, our relationship had been built on assumptions. I assumed he was the perfect son. He assumed he had to be perfect for me. We'd been performing for each other, showing only the polished parts, hiding the struggles. Now we talked about real things. He told me about his anxiety, about the pressure he felt to succeed, about the mistakes he'd made trying to prove himself. I told him about my fears, about the loneliness I'd hidden for years, about how hard it had been sometimes being a single mother even though I'd never regretted it. We became real people to each other, not just mother and son fulfilling expected roles. Sometimes, I thought, breaking is the only way to rebuild something stronger. Now here's where the story takes a turn I never saw coming. And it involves, of all things, Mrs. Patterson's meddling nature. It was about 6 months after David had returned the money. Spring had arrived and I was in my garden planting tomatoes when Jean Patterson appeared at my fence. "Vivian," she called out, "you busy?" I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. "Just gardening." "What's up?" She came through the gate, something she rarely did. Jean was more of a talk-over-the-fence kind of neighbor. Her coming into my yard meant something was up. "I have a confession," she said, not meeting my eyes. Oh dear. In my experience, conversations that start with, "I have a confession," rarely end well. "What did you do, Jean?" "I told my daughter about what happened. With your son. I know it wasn't my place, but we were talking about trust and family and it slipped out." I felt a flash of irritation. That was private. But Jean looked so guilty, and besides, what was done was done. "It's okay," I said. "What your daughter knows doesn't change anything." "Well, the thing is," she told her therapist friend. And her therapist friend runs a podcast. About family relationships and forgiveness and such. I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. "Jean. They want you on the podcast," she blurted out. "To tell your story. They said it's exactly the kind of real, honest story people need to hear. About betrayal and forgiveness and all that." "Absolutely not. They'll pay you." I paused. "How much?" $500. For an hour interview. $500. That would cover the mountain trip I'd been planning with money left over. But more than that, I thought about all those sleepless nights after David took the money. How alone I'd felt. How I'd searched online for stories like mine, hoping to find someone who understood, who'd been through something similar. I'd found articles about financial abuse and family estrangement. But I hadn't found what I really needed. A real person saying, "This happened to me too. And I survived. And here's how." "Let me think about it," I told Jean. That night I called David and told him about the offer. "It's your story, Mom," he said. "Your choice. But, if you want my opinion, I think you should do it." "You do?" "Yeah. What I did, stealing from you, I thought I was the only person low enough to do something like that to their parent. But I'm learning in therapy that lots of people make terrible choices in moments of desperation. And they all feel alone in their shame. If telling our story helps even one person feel less alone, or helps one family find a way back to each other, maybe something good can come from what I did." I was quiet for a moment. "When did you get so wise?" He laughed, a sound that still made my heart glad. "I learned from the best. So I did it. I went on that podcast. And you know what? It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Sitting in that small recording studio talking to a woman I'd never met about the worst thing that had ever happened to me. But when the episode aired, something amazing happened. I got letters. Emails forwarded through the podcast. Messages from people all over the country saying, "Thank you. My son did something similar. My daughter betrayed me too." I thought I was the only one struggling with forgiveness. One woman wrote, "I haven't spoken to my son in 3 years because of what he did. Your story made me realize I'm punishing both of us. I'm going to call him tomorrow." Another said, "I'm the son who betrayed my mother. Hearing that your relationship survived gives me hope that maybe I can make things right with mine." That's when I understood something profound. Our pain is never just ours. Our stories are never just ours. When we have the courage to share them, they become bridges for others to cross from their own isolation to connection. The $500 was nice. But those letters, those were priceless. It's been a year now since that October morning when I found my account empty. David and I have dinner together every Sunday. It's become our ritual again, but different now. Deeper. He brings groceries and we cook together. Last week we made lasagna and nearly set off the smoke alarm, and we laughed like conspirators while waving dish towels at the ceiling. He's paid off his debt and rebuilt his savings. He tells me about his therapy sessions sometimes, about the insights he's having. I tell him about my book club and my garden and the new friend I made at the community center. We don't pretend the past didn't happen. Sometimes we even talk about it directly. Do you still think about it? He asked me recently. What I did. I considered that. Sometimes. But not with anger anymore. More like, it's a scar now instead of a wound. I know it's there, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to. He nodded slowly. I think about it every day. But it doesn't paralyze me anymore. It reminds me to be better. That's all any of us can do, David. Be better than we were yesterday. I finally booked that trip to Scotland. I leave in 3 months. David offered to pay for part of it, but I said no. This is something I need to do with my own money, earned and saved and kept safe. But here's the thing, it doesn't mean as much as it used to. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited. But I've learned that the destination was never really the point. It was what the savings represented. Independence, dreams, hope for the future. And I have all those things now, just in different forms than I expected. Mrs. Patterson is coming with me to Scotland, actually. It turns out she's always wanted to go too, and after I mentioned my trip she casually said, "You know, it's safer to travel with a companion. For 2 old ladies anyway." I laughed. Jean, you're 72 and you wrestle cats into carriers for vet appointments. I don't think safety is really the issue. Fine. I don't want you to have all the fun without me. That's better. So we're going together. 2 old women who've lived next door for 15 years without ever really being friends, about to traipse through the Highlands together. Life is funny that way. My dear, we're coming to the end of our time together today, but before we part, I want to share with you the deepest truths I've learned from this whole experience. The things that keep me awake at night with their weight and wake me up in the morning with their light. David is not defined by the day he stole from me. He's defined by what he did after. The honesty, the restitution, the hard work of becoming better. And I'm not defined by the day I was betrayed. I'm defined by how I chose to move forward. With hurt, yes, but also with grace, with hope, with the determination not to let bitterness become my permanent address. We all have worst moments. Moments we're ashamed of. Moments that don't represent who we really are or who we're trying to become. The question isn't whether you'll have these moments. You will. We all will. The question is, what will you do after? I don't trust David the way I did before. That innocent, unquestioning trust is gone forever. But I trust him now in a deeper way. I trust that if he makes a mistake, he'll own it. I trust that he's doing the work to understand himself. I trust that he values our relationship enough to fight for it. This new trust is more conscious, more intentional. It's not blind faith. It's eyes wide open commitment. And honestly, it's better. The trust of innocence is beautiful, I've learned. But the trust earned through failure and redemption is unbreakable. People say forgive and forget like they're the same thing. They're not. I will never forget what David did. It's part of our story now. Part of who we are individually and together. But forgiveness means I don't weaponize that memory. I don't bring it up in arguments. I don't use it to punish him or to protect myself. I remember it. I learned from it. And then I chose to move forward anyway. Let me be clear. Practical matters matter. Money matters. Security matters. I'm not some ethereal being who floats above material concerns. Losing that money was devastating. It represented real things. Safety, independence, dreams. But here's what I know now. I could have gotten my money back and still lost everything that mattered. If I'd chosen bitterness over forgiveness, anger over reconciliation, I would have been rich and miserable. Instead, I got my money back and kept my son. That's not luck. That's choice. In the end, I tell myself, we will be measured not by what we accumulated but by what we gave away, especially grace. I never would have chosen this experience. Given the option, I'd take it all back in a heartbeat. But since I can't take it back, I can at least use it. Share it. Let it mean something beyond my own pain. Every person who's reached out to say my story helped them has transformed my suffering into something purposeful. They've taken my pain and used it as a ladder to climb out of their own. That doesn't make what happened okay. But it makes it bearable. Now, my dear, let me speak directly to you. Yes, you listening to this right now, wherever you are. Maybe you're washing dishes or driving or lying in bed unable to sleep. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe someone you love has betrayed you, or maybe you're the one who did the betraying and you don't know how to make it right. Here's what I want you to know. You are not alone. Whatever you're carrying, whatever weight sits on your heart, someone else has carried it too. Someone else has survived it. And if they survived it, so can you. Forgiveness is always possible. Not easy. Not painless. Not instant. But possible. If you're the one who was hurt, forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you're choosing not to let it destroy you. It means you're taking your power back from the person who hurt you. And if you're the one who did the hurting, it's not too late. It's never too late to own what you did, to apologize sincerely, to make amends. Some relationships can't be saved, that's true. But some can. And the only way to find out is to try. You are more than your worst moment. Whether that worst moment was yesterday or 20 years ago, it doesn't define you. Your response defines you. Your willingness to grow, to change, to do better. That's what defines you. And finally, you are loved. Maybe not by the person you want. Maybe not in the way you expected. But somewhere in this vast, broken, beautiful world, you are loved. And if you can't feel that love right now, if you're too hurt or too tired or too angry, that's okay too. Love doesn't require you to feel it to be real. It just waits, patient and persistent, until you're ready to receive it. My story with David isn't finished. Stories like ours never really finish. They just keep unfolding chapter after chapter with new challenges and new grace. But here's what I know for certain. The son who betrayed me is also the son who came back. The money that was stolen was also returned. The trust that was broken is being rebuilt, piece by careful piece. Me. I'm the same woman who cried in her kitchen over an empty bank account. But I'm also different. Stronger in some ways. Softer in others. More cautious, yes, but also more hopeful. Because I learned something profound through all of this. The opposite of betrayal isn't caution. It's courage. The courage to stay open. The courage to forgive. The courage to believe that people can change, that relationships can heal, that tomorrow might be better than today. I was in the garden last Sunday when David arrived for dinner. He came through the gate carrying grocery bags, and something about the scene struck me. The late afternoon light, the smell of roses, my son's familiar figure approaching. It looked so ordinary. So beautifully, impossibly ordinary. Need help, he called. Always, I called back. We worked together, pulling weeds, staking the tomatoes that had grown unruly. Our hands moved in companionable silence. The kind of silence that's only possible between people who've weathered storms together. At one point, David paused and looked at me. Mom. Thank you. For what? For giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it. I straightened up, brushing dirt from my gloves. David, here's the thing about chances. We don't earn them. We just get them. And then we have to decide what to do with them. He nodded slowly. I'm trying to do something good with mine. I know you are a sweetheart. I see it every day. We went inside and made dinner together. While the pasta boiled, David told me about a financial literacy class he'd started teaching at the community center, helping young people learn to manage money responsibly, making something positive from his mistakes. I told him about the second podcast I'd been asked to do, and how weird it felt to be something of a minor internet personality at 64. We laughed. We talked. We ate slightly overcooked pasta and didn't care. And later, after he left, after I'd washed the dishes and put everything away, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Contentment. Not happiness, that's too simple, too fleeting. But contentment. The deep satisfaction of a life being lived honestly, imperfectly, courageously. My savings account had the same balance it had a year ago. But I was wealthier in ways that mattered more. Richer in forgiveness, in understanding, in the knowledge that love can survive even when it's tested to its absolute limits. Scotland awaits in 3 months. Mrs. Patterson has already bought walking shoes and is reading guidebooks with the intensity of a general planning a campaign. David might join us for a few days if work permits. We haven't decided yet. But whether he comes or not, whether the trip is perfect or full of mishaps, whether my dreams match reality, none of that matters as much as I once thought it would. Because I already have what I was really seeking all along. Hope. Connection. Love that's been tested and survived. A son who made a terrible mistake and found his way back. A mother who had every reason to close her heart and chose to keep it open. And a story that reminds us all. Sometimes the ones who hurt us most are the ones who need our forgiveness most. Strength isn't found in anger but in grace. And love never leaves for long. This was Aunt Vivvy, my dear, and I thank you for listening. For sitting with me through this long story, for letting me share my heart with you. If this story touched you in any way, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe and join me again tomorrow. For another tale to warm your soul, to challenge your heart, or simply to remind you that you're not alone in this beautiful, difficult journey we call life. Until then, be gentle with yourself. Be brave when you can. And remember, you are seen, you are valued, and you are never truly alone. Take care, my dear.